Hi, everyone. How are you all doing today? I wanted to bring up a topic that's been on my mind all year, and also is a little bit of an introduction to a webinar that I'm going to be doing with my friend Jeremy this upcoming Wednesday. But I wanted to talk to you guys all about shame and how it's being used as a weapon against us all. And shame is Shame is a very low level of consciousness. If you've ever read the book Power versus Force by David Hawkins, then you understand or know about the scale of consciousness and how your vibration and frequency is aligns with certain levels of consciousness. Now, the lowest form before death is shame. It sits at the level 20. And anything below 200 is a destructive level of consciousness, which means whatever you're doing, if you are in that state of consciousness, if you are operating from that place, everything that you think, do, create is coming from a very destructive place of consciousness. Now, shame is a really, really unfortunate level of consciousness because it's been used throughout the millennia as a way to ridicule people and as a form of cruelty. I think if anyone's watched Game of Thrones, you remember when Cersei's walking through the city and she's being shamed by people chanting shame over and over to her, throwing rotten food in her face, feces on her body, spitting at her, basically completely demoralizing the woman before she gets to the end, where she finally is broken down and the smallest version of herself, which really, if you know her character, was a very shocking thing to see and witness. Well, regardless of whether you think she deserved it or not, when we see someone in that level of consciousness, that means there's a part of us in that level of consciousness. We are all connected. And so we do not want to perpetuate such levels of consciousness if we really truly want to rise above and evolve as greater and loving people. So the reason why this topic is a little bit of a hot button for me is because I was shamed at the very beginning of this year by friends, family, and people I knew. And it was because I expressed an idea that challenged people. It triggered people. And it wasn't so much that I expressed it to trigger that. I thought I was actually expressing a very loving idea. But what I realized through this massive wake-up call is that people can only perceive what they're willing to see depending on where they're at on their level of consciousness. So I could have been expressing something, say, on a level of love. However, if someone's not at that level of consciousness, they can't perceive it that way. They perceive it at whatever level they're at. Now, through various sources of media, whether it's news, movies, TV shows, advertising, marketing, all those kinds of things right now, we're seeing a huge separation, a huge division. And it's being perpetuated by a lot of shame, by people saying that they're offended by something and then shaming the person because they feel offended. Now, the whole idea of being offended is a whole other topic. And I've actually done a whole video with it with my friend Jeremy, which I'm going to link to at the end of this video. But shame is such a sad place for us to go to. It really is. We should never be shaming someone or be on the recipient end of shame because it's the lowest level of consciousness next to death. Why do we want to put anyone there if we realize that we are a collective community and a collective consciousness, if someone's sitting at that level of consciousness, then that's affecting us as well. One of my favorite sayings through my 20s, as I studied the Mayan culture, was in Lakek. And it basically means I am another you. So if we're shaming someone else, then we're shaming ourselves. Now, this whole idea of shame is very interesting, because what happens is the people who often are doing the shaming are coming from a place of self-righteousness. They're coming from a place of wanting to be some sort of vigilante, or aligning with some sort of extreme group or something along those lines, that is masking their unconscious shame, in their own internal unconscious shame. And so what happens is they use this idea of self-righteousness to project their own internal shame on other people who don't align with their own beliefs or ideals or concepts that are being challenged. Now, this is really unfortunate, and it's very hurtful to the collective. We really need to start finding some compassion for one another through this polarization that's happening. Polarization is okay. It's not a bad thing, as long as you maintain an open mind, a flexible mind, to receive new ideas or challenging ideas that allow you to expand your mind, to expand the way you perceive things, so that you can learn and grow. We all are constantly evolving and growing. What we believed as children, are some of those beliefs that we had when we were kids, are no longer our beliefs anymore. It doesn't mean, though, that when we were children that those beliefs were wrong. They served us as children, but now as adults, they don't serve us any longer, so we let them go. Well, the same happens through our adult life. As we learn and evolve, and as we move up the scale of consciousness and see things in different ways, remember, our reality is our perception. So whatever we're perceiving is what we're creating as our reality. So as you move up in awareness and your level of consciousness starts to expand and grow and allow for more ideas and concepts to come in, naturally, you're going to want to start dropping old beliefs that you were used to hold on to, the belief that were so right. Now, truth is a very interesting topic, because many of us believe that there's only one truth. The truth is a truth, and that's it. Well, the reality is that depending on what consciousness level you're at, the truth is always changing. So what may be true for someone at the level consciousness of, say, 100, which is fear, someone at the level of, say, 250, which is neutrality, may have a completely different version of truth, of what is true for them. And it's simply because the consciousness is different. It doesn't mean that one is right or wrong. It just means that they are perceiving something from a different state of consciousness. Now, if we shut down the conversation between this polarization, then we don't allow for the growth as a collective to happen. We must not close ourselves off to ideas or beliefs or constructs or systems that have been put in place that challenge us. Okay, so this is where everything kind of goes sideways, is that we have a tendency to identify with our beliefs. And that's where everything kind of gets screwed up. That's where everything starts to get messy. We are not our beliefs. We are not our thoughts. We are not our ideas. We are not the systems that we run our lives by. We are infinite beings. We are an infinite self that is limitless and ever expanding. And as we grow, we expand more into that infiniteness. We understand ourselves more as a whole and not as little pieces here and there, little labels that we like to put on ourselves. So having this open-mindedness to really stay open to this dialogue that we can have with one another allows us not only to learn from another, but also teach and expand on ideas that are really challenging to us. If an idea is challenging to you, that is not a bad thing. That's a good thing. That's how we learn. when we go to school, we're constantly being challenged about things. You're constantly having to learn new things. We can't let that go just because we're not in school anymore. Our teachers come in various ways. Our teachers sometimes come from the people who trigger us the most. And so when we turn away from that opportunity of meeting a trigger and who's presenting themselves as basically a hidden teacher, then we're really doing a disservice to not just ourselves, but the collective. If we truly want to evolve and move into this higher state of awareness where we're really starting to cultivate more love and more joy and more peace in this world, creating that unity consciousness, then we cannot continue this polarization and separation of one another. And shame right now is the number one thing that I'm seeing being used to continue that separation. So I really wanted to do this video because it's so important to understand our level of consciousness and our emotions and how they're all tied in together and how we start to create our world considering what level we're at. Now, this scale goes up to 1,000, and it's so important to understand this level if you really want to truly make strides in your growth and evolve as your own, just in your own individual self. But I'm doing a webinar this Wednesday with my friend Jeremy on these levels of consciousness and how you can actually not just empower yourself, but empower the collective by raising your own consciousness and continuing to live your life from those higher states of consciousness. I don't think many of us understand that when you're in that destructive phase, once you step out of it, once you go above 200, you now have a power to neutralize or counterbalance the negativity of tens of thousands of people, just as you, one person alone. And I think that's really empowering. I think that's really important for people to understand, because we're taught that as individuals, we can't really do anything on our own, that we don't really have this individual power, that we need to all come together. And it's important that we do all come together, but we can't all come together empowered if we don't first start empowering from within. So we need to stop looking outside of ourselves and start looking within on how we can cultivate and grow that. And so if you're interested in learning more about this scale of consciousness and how you can start to shift out of more of the destructive levels of consciousness and into more constructive levels of consciousness, then I'm going to leave a link down below for the webinar that we're holding this Wednesday. It's going to be really fun and really interactive, and I would love to have you all there. So we're going to keep it open to questions, and it's just something I'm very passionate about, because I really do see the benefit of awareness. I believe that awareness is the greatest alchemy there is. And when we create more awareness into understanding how we're all operating on this, this human existence, then we can start to finally make the changes. But until we're aware of them, we can't really do much. And so in order for us to all be productive to one another, we kind of got to work together and help one another out. And I'd love to share this knowledge with all of you. And perhaps even you will have some things to say that I can learn from, and my friend Jeremy might be able to learn from. So, we're always teachers and students. We're always teachers and students. So I just wanted to bring that up today. And, we just have to really be aware of how important introspection is for the self and for the society. We have to really start going within and observing how we're acting in this world, observing what we're creating. And when we can allow free thought and free expression to occur without ever feeling attacked, then we are in such a good place. We are in such a good place to learn from one another. We are in such a good place to evolve and grow and come together in that unified force that we're all really seeking, but we're kind of all confused on how to get there. So I just wanted to really just talk about this today and put it out there. So if you are someone who's experienced shame, or you can see that in yourself, that that's something you're doing, just don't judge yourself or judge the other. Just observe what's going on. Observe why. Observe the feelings that are coming up within you. If you're someone who's shaming someone, why are you so triggered right now? Why are you so triggered by someone else having an opposing belief or thought? And it's just really great to kind of go into that witness mode, to just be the observer and allow. Once you just do that, you allow the mind to open up, and then the insight starts to flood in. And that's how we learn and grow. So I hope this was a good video for you, and I hope that it brings some insight in. So again, if you're interested in taking the webinar, I'll leave the link below. But thanks for stopping by the channel today. I really enjoy sharing this information with all of you. And if you need any more information about me, you can head on over to my blog, inflexiblement.com. If you need to, you can sign up for my newsletter, where you're going to get information to events like this webinar coming up and all that. And of course, if you would like to tune in to my podcast, Enlighten Up, that comes out every Thursday in iTunes. And it's just basically 3 friends talking about the spiritual journey, kind of poking fun at one another and discussing all of the topics that come up as we start to evolve and grow. Have a great day, everyone, and I will catch you next time.